Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Standards Committee on the 18th of March. Thank you for coming. I'm going to begin with agenda item 1, which is to receive apologies of absence. And we've had two, Councillor Phillips and Councillor Salimbini. And item 2 is to consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business, and I have none. Item 3 is to receive declarations of interest from members in respect of any item on the agenda. Does anybody have any declarations of interest that we need to note? No? Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
I do. I should put the standard registration or declaration in. Chairman of Mid-Sussex Association of Local Councils and Chairman of West Sussex Association of Local Councils.
Thank you very much. Is that okay, Kevin? Thank you. And item 4 is to be agreed by general affirmation the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 11th of September 2023. I'd just like to seek verbal agreement for those, if everybody's happy with those.
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you very much. So item 5 on the agenda is the parish nomination. And the nomination is for Councillor Sarah Webster of Horsted Keynes. We need to ask for a proposer and seconder for this, if I may. Propose? Second. Thank you very much. And I think, do we all need to agree verbally on that? Yeah. Okay. And so if we can all agree verbally that... yes. Great. Thank you very much. And item 6 is the member code of conduct and the complaints procedure, and I'd like to invite Kevin Toogood to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. As members of this committee will be aware, the code of conduct and the standards regime is intended to support the council in ensuring that that members can be held to account if they fail to adhere to the high standards of conduct which are expected of them. The arrangements that we operate are broadly similar to those operated by other councils, and in my view they reflect an appropriate set of controls ensuring that matters which don't merit the committee's attention can be dealt with speedily, but matters which do warrant further consideration gets to a committee and are properly considered by members. It's part of the constitutional role of this committee to ensure that members uphold those high standards of conduct, and so really it's only right that this committee gets an opportunity on occasion to consider the arrangements that we have in place to deal with complaints under the code. And so that's the purpose of the report that's before you this evening, and really I'd welcome any thoughts or comments people have on how our arrangements operate at the moment, and if there's a desire for me to bring an amended version or a further version for consideration to a later committee, I'm certainly very happy to do that, and equally happy to take any questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And I think obviously we welcome any comments from members, and we have a question from Mike Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Kennedy. Apologies.
Oh, don't worry, I can live with that. This is rather new to me, but forgive me if I'm asking questions that are pretty obvious. Can I begin by asking two or three questions? Firstly, I assume this is a standard draft of a procedure that's used in other councils and has been used effectively without any problems. The second question is, there's talk of or mention of an assessment subcommittee and a hearing subcommittee, but But I didn't see anywhere on the notices the perhaps obvious thing that members of both, it couldn't be shouldn't be a member of both, so you shouldn't be assessing and you shouldn't be acting in the hearing. So is that clear in the documentation? And elsewhere in the papers, there is talk of an assessment panel. Is that a separate thing from the assessment subcommittee? And a final question is about the independent investigators who are appointed to deal with the investigations. What sort of people are they? Are they brought in from outside, firms of solicitors or barristers or specialist investigators? Just really points of information, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you okay to answer those? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Yes, it's a relatively standard set of arrangements. Individual councils can adjust them as they see fit. There isn't a model standard like there is for the Code of Conduct, but these are the arrangements that we operate are broadly similar to those operated, for example, in Horsham and elsewhere. In relation to how we organise our assessment and hearing subcommittees, they're drawn from membership of this committee, of course, and you're absolutely right, the members of the assessment subcommittee or assessment panel, and I think that's just using those phrases interchangeably, shouldn't also be on the hearing panel. The idea is that the assessment panel is there to, if I've carried out the initial sift with the independent persons and we've come to a view that actually there might be some substance to this if it were looked at further, then that goes to the assessment panel, and it's the assessment panel that makes the decision as to whether or not there's an investigation. And then following the investigation, there would be a separate hearing with the hearing panel. So yes, there'd be different members of this committee sat on those two bodies. And in terms of the investigators that we would use, they do tend to be experienced standards investigators. So there's a company called CH&I Associates that I've used on a number of occasions in the past, and they employ a mix of people who used to be at Standards for England and retired police officers and various people of that ilk, so very familiar with carrying out investigations. And if needs be, there are also a few specialist law firms which offer advice and support on code of conduct and standards matters as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And David Horn.
Thank you. Having thought I'd got the arrangements right for this.
Yeah, you're okay now.
I'm okay. Good. Thank you very much. I really wanted to say how grateful I was to see this report. I think it's a very useful report to have. But having said that, I agree with Councillor Cornish's comments. There are, I think, Colin's comments earlier about there is some scope, I think, for tying things up in terms of the various descriptions. But I wanted to draw out really three main points around particularly the role of the independent persons in this. And my points are drawn from the LGA's model code of conduct, of which this council's code of conduct is based. And I'm referencing this to the appendix in the agenda, which is the complaints procedure, which is part of the Constitution, because this feels more relevant than the preamble we've had. So the first of my 3 points is on page 12 of the agenda, and it's in the top paragraph, which refers to if the monitoring officer concludes that the complaint does justify committee consideration, then it goes on to describe the process. But there's a reference there to the role of the independent person, should they require guidance to the particular subject member for the process, which is a valid point, but it's important that that is distinct from the view of the independent person as to whether there should be a decision to undertake a formal investigation on the allegation. So my point is that at the top of page 12, there should be reference to the role of the independent person in their involvement in the process as to whether there's a formal investigation of the allegation. The reference to the independent person providing guidance to the subject member is useful, but a quite distinct role, and is there just to provide some sort of education as to the process. So that was my first of 3 points. The second point is on page 13 of the agenda, which refers to there's a paragraph about the role of the assessment subcommittee, which refers to the papers, including the monitoring officer's written advice. But my suggestion is that that advice needs to include the view of the independent person as well. The reasons for that will become apparent in my third and final point, which is in the conclusion of the results of the decision subcommittee, the paragraph says the results of the deliberations are sent to the complainant, to the subject member, the group leader and relevant town or parish council. That needs to be bolstered up in my view, because it is not in line with the model code of conduct. The model code of conduct refers to having a decision notice being published, and that decision needs to be published on the website as soon as possible. And that decision notice needs to include a brief statement of facts, the provisions of the code, the view of the independent person, the reasoning of the decision maker, and any sanction applied. Now, that's an important addition, and I just want to qualify that by saying in another place, I chaired one of these assessment committees for another local authority council, and at the end of the hearing, there was the BBC wanting to do press interviews, film interviews. There's a lot of public interest, media interest in this. So making sure there is a proper process to handle the conclusion of the investigation of an allegation is an important part of the process. It can't be left just to peter out. It needs just to be bolstered in the way I've suggested. And that, I hope, is the end of my suggested additions. But I hope that is useful for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Appreciate your input on that. Would you like to revert on that, Kevin?
No, that's fine.
I'll take
those on board.
Okay, we'll take those. Thank you very much. Can I ask for any other further comments at all? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we will need to, we will need a proposer and a seconder, please, if I may, for those. Councillor Russell, thank you, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Belsey. Okay, and we're going to need to vote on this as well, please. If you'd like to vote on your touch screens, please. And we vote as well, don't we?
Okay, Councillor Belsey. I would add, no, you have voted, that's fine.
Is that everybody? Great, thank you very much. So that's unanimous of 8 in favour. Thank you. So on to agenda point 7, which is the Standards Committee Annual Report Update. And again, I'd like to invite Kevin Toogood to introduce, please.
Thank you, Chair. Very brief introduction from me. Simply to say, you'll recall that we had an annual report at the September 23 meeting. The purpose of this update is basically to bring us back on schedule with the annual reporting cycle. So the next report you'll receive on the complaints that we've received will be next February, probably. Since reporting in September, there were 8 complaints, but they actually related only to 3 separate distinct matters. The broad nature of the allegations is set out in the report, and as I've said there, on an initial consideration in each case, there was no further action to be taken.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Would anybody like to make comments on that point on the agenda? In that case, I think this is for noting. So can I have an agreement that we are happy with that, please? Thank you very much. Okay, so the last point on the agenda is questions pursuant to council procedure, Rule 10.2, due notice of which has been given, and I have none. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending and joining us this evening, and we can close the meeting at 7:14, I believe. Thank you very much. Thank you.